The joke, you see, is that the part of you trying to control the show was hired for a job that doesn't even exist. We spend years polishing the mask, and then one day life kindly rips it off and calls it grace. You think you are driving the car of your life until the road disappears and you discover you are the road. The ego plans and rehearses every scene while the soul sits in the audience whispering, "Beloved, this is improv." Suffering is what happens when God doesn't follow your script, and awakening is what happens when you stop insisting that He should. The guru doesn't fix your life. He just laughs you out of the role you thought you were playing. Service is the cosmic joke where you rush to help others and slowly discover you've just been visiting all your own rooms. The more seriously you take your opinion, the more tenderly the universe arranges to pry your fingers from the steering wheel. When you finally sit still and watch the whole circus of mind, even your neuroses begin to look like holy clowns dancing for God. In the end, the big punchline is that you never controlled anything, and yet you are held utterly by that which moves all things. So just imagine for a moment that everything in your life has gone exactly according to your plans. Just imagine that. Everyone behaved, no one left you, the body cooperated, the mind was obedient like a well-trained dog, the world fit into your ideas the way books line up on a shelf. It sounds very tidy, very safe, very dead, doesn't it? Because you see, the hilarious truth is that the one who wants it all neat and under control is a rather anxious little character. It is the part of us that believes very sincerely, if I could just arrange all of this properly, then I would finally be at peace. And life, in its infinite kindness, keeps saying, "Oh, sweetheart, no," and rearranges everything. I remember hiding my own mind doing this desperate interior decorating of the universe. Move that person over here, that feeling over there, that problem. Well, let's shove that under the rug and call it spiritual. And then something would happen. A relationship would fall apart. A project would collapse. The body would hurt. A friend would die. And I would feel that clenching, that inner voice. This should not be happening. This is not in the plan. That's the moment the curriculum gets interesting, because the suffering isn't in the broken plan. It's in the voice that says, "I know how reality should be, and this isn't it." That voice is the would-be ruler of the cosmos, the ego, very busy, very earnest, very convinced that God needs a good assistant manager. And the universe just smiles and keeps doing what it's doing. Now, when I first went to India, I brought that assistant manager with me. I thought I was going on a spiritual expedition. I would gather wisdom, take notes, perhaps return with a better system for controlling my inner life. I had been a psychologist, after all. I knew how to analyze, examine, compare, categorize. If the mind was a machine, surely we could tighten some bolts and oil some hinges, and then it would behave. Then I met this old man wrapped in a blanket, sitting on a wooden bench, who looked at me like I had never been looked at before. Not as a successful professor, not as a failed lover, not as an anxious young man on a spiritual shopping trip. He looked at me the way a mother looks at a child who has been pretending to be very important in the next room, marching around in a cardboard crown. He saw right through the costume and loved me anyway. I didn't know what to do with that. Because when someone sees through your entire identity and does not flinch, your control strategies start to wobble. You can keep pretending, but the pretending no longer has that solid feel. It's like being in a play and realizing that the audience sees you putting on the makeup and struggling with your lines, and yet somehow they're still delighted just to be with you. One day I was sitting there with him, and the mind was very busy. Is this my guru? Is this safe? Am I giving up too much? What about my career? What about my family? What about my image? You know that committee in your head that holds emergency meetings? They were all there, banging on the table, and he just looked at me and said nothing. It was infuriating and tender at the same time. All my questions turned into this one silent howl. Who is in charge here? And in that silence, I began to sense that the one who thought he was in charge was only a very small wave on a very big ocean. That's the beginning of the joke. You see, we think we are the author of the story. We think, I decided, I chose, I did. But if you watch closely, you begin to notice something very peculiar. You notice that thoughts appear without your invitation. Feelings surge up out of nowhere. The body grows, ages, changes without asking your permission. Breath goes in and out. At some point you realize, I didn't sign a form for any of this. It's like waking up in a theater where the play is already in full swing and then insisting you wrote the script. No wonder we're exhausted. Now, the spiritual path, as I've come to see it, is not about becoming a better controller. It's not about acquiring some subtle metaphysical levers so that you can finally make reality match your wishes. It's about discovering that you are not who you thought you were. It's about shifting identity. At first, we are the character. We're the one on stage, sweating under the lights, afraid of forgetting our lines. Will they love me? Will they leave me? Am I enough? Then, through some grace, usually disguised as disappointment or heartbreak or loss, we glimpse that we are also the audience. We are the witness, quietly watching the whole performance. The thoughts come and go, the emotions rise and fall, the victories, the failures, the illnesses, the romances, each one plays its part. And some deeper part of us sits there, breathing, aware. That's anger, there's fear, now sadness, now relief. Same awareness, different weather. Awareness is like the sky. Thoughts, feelings, events. They're just clouds passing through. Sometimes it's a storm, sometimes a clear day, sometimes a soft, gray drizzle. The sky does not have to control the weather. It just has to be what it is, wide, open, allowing. When you start to rest as that sky, the obsession with controlling every cloud begins to loosen. You still plan, you still act, you still care, but the tightness around it begins to soften. You discover you can be fully engaged and yet not possessed. I remember once being at an anti-nuclear rally. There we all were, earnest, passionate, carrying signs and chanting slogans. I looked around and I saw two layers. On one layer, people were saying, "No more bombs, no more war," and their hearts were overflowing with love for the earth, for the children, for the future. On another layer, some of us were secretly marching against the wicked, the ignorant, the other side. The enemy had simply changed costumes, and I felt my own righteousness. How could they not see what we see? How could they be so blind, so cruel? That energy, that tightness, it's very seductive. You feel fueled by it. You feel clear, powerful, justified. But under it, there's fear. There's that old controller again. If I don't hate them enough, nothing will change. Standing there, I watched my own mind making enemies out of human beings who were as lost and as fearful as I was. And in that moment, the rally became my meditation cushion. Can I march without an enemy? I wondered. Can I act to relieve suffering while knowing that the ones I oppose are also expressions of the same one? That's the paradox of service. You act as though it all depends on you, and you rest knowing that none of it depends on you. You write the letters, you go to the meetings, you feed the hungry, you sit beside the dying, and simultaneously you let go of the belief that you are the author of outcomes. It's a very strange way to live. You become fully responsible and utterly surrendered at the same time. The ego is trying to understand this, and it gets a headache. But the soul hears it and relaxes because it recognizes something very old, very natural. You see, the soul knows that it is not separate. It looks out from behind your eyes, and it sees itself behind everyone else's eyes. From that place, compassion is not a virtue, it's simple sanity. If you hit someone else, you feel the bruise. If you heal someone else, you feel the easing. There isn't you and them in the same way. There are just different windows for the same light. The problem is we keep hiring the ego as our spokesperson. So even our spirituality becomes something to control and present nicely. We meditate and then peek to see if we look serene enough. We do service and then check to make sure God is taking notes. Did you see that, Lord? I was very kind back there. Perhaps a little grace in return? I've watched my own mind do this. I'll sit with someone who is grieving, and there's a part of me that is simply present, open, soft. And then there's another little fellow in there polishing his badge. Ah, yes, look at you, so compassionate, so spiritual, so advanced. And then I notice him and I have to smile. Ah, there you are again, dear. No need to kill him off, just see him for what he is, a child wanting approval. The witness practice is precisely that. We learn to watch the whole inner circus with tenderness. The fear, the control, the grasping, the piety, the guilt, they parade across the stage. We don't have to push them away or build an identity around them. We just keep quietly noting, ah, that's fear, that's pride, that's shame. And as we do, something remarkable happens. The identification loosens. You may still feel angry, but you're not just the anger anymore. You may still feel shame, but you aren't swallowed by it in quite the same way. There's a little more space, a little more sky, and in that space, love begins to seep through. Not the sentimental kind, deeper than that. Love as the simple recognition that whatever appears is part of the one. Once I was sitting in the ashram, irritated. That's a wonderful thing about spiritual places. They're very good at bringing up your irritation. Someone had done something or not done something. I don't even remember now, and I was sulking internally. After all my practice, after all my efforts, how can I still be so petty? You know that voice. It's the controller grading its own performance. Maharajji was sitting across the courtyard, munching fruit, surrounded by people. I wasn't even sure he knew I existed that day. And then he looked over at me and burst out laughing. He laughed and laughed until tears rolled down his cheeks. Everyone else laughed too, and they had no idea why. And suddenly I felt this extraordinary sensation, as if the universe were laughing through him at my seriousness. Not mocking me, never that. It was as though he was saying, with every ripple of laughter, "Oh, you dear one, look what you're doing to yourself. You're wrapping yourself in this tight little package and calling it me, and it's so unnecessary." And I felt my grip on the story loosen just a little. The anger didn't vanish. It just stopped being the center of the universe. That's the guru's job, really. Not to hand you a new set of instructions for controlling life, but to show you again and again that you are not who you think you are. The guru is the mirror that doesn't buy your act. You come in with your costume and your lines and your problems, and the guru keeps seeing the light behind all of it. Sometimes he does it with silence, sometimes with a joke, sometimes with a command, sometimes by ignoring you completely. However he does it, the message is the same. You are that. You are the one. Stop pretending to be so small. People used to ask, why do you have a guru? And the only honest answer is, bad luck, I guess. Because once someone has seen through you at that depth, there's no going back. You can try to return to your old life, your old control systems, but they don't fit quite right anymore. You can't fully believe your own melodrama. Something in you keeps chuckling at the wrong moment. The real punchline, of course, is that the guru, the God, and the self are not three different things. That presence you feel when you sit before a being of great love, that spaciousness, that stillness, that radiance, that's your own true nature. The guru is like a very polished mirror. The reflection is so clear that you finally recognize yourself. And once you recognize it, you start seeing it everywhere, in other people, in trees, in traffic jams, in hospital rooms. I've watched people die in hospital rooms and seen that presence as clearly as I saw it in the ashram. The body grows weak, the mind flickers in and out, and yet there is this unmistakable awareness shining through. Sometimes in those last moments, all the striving falls away. Control is no longer an option, and what emerges is a kind of naked being. Sometimes it's peaceful, sometimes it's terrified, but underneath there is just this isness. To be at a bedside like that is to be invited into truth. You can't pretend at the edge of life. You realize how much energy you've spent managing impressions, strategizing, defending, rehearsing. And there you are, or your loved one is, stripped of all of that. What remains is the love that was always there, holding quietly in the background. If you're listening to this now, perhaps there's some area in your life where the control strategy is failing. Something is not going according to plan. Maybe your body is not performing as you had hoped. Maybe a relationship is not following the script. Maybe the world is not aligning with your ideals. And the mind says, this is wrong, we must fix this or we cannot be at peace. Just notice that voice. You don't have to exile it or shame it. It came forth originally to help you survive. It's the frightened child who learned that if it could just hold everything together, maybe it wouldn't be abandoned. You can hold that child in your heart with great tenderness. Thank you for trying so hard, you can say. 2. Thank you for all your efforts. You can rest now. You are not in charge of the sun rising. Take a breath with me here. Just feel the breath going in and feel the breath going out. You don't have to control it. You can't. You can play with it a little, but underneath something is breathing you. Life is breathing you. You are being lived. If you let your awareness sink down beneath the words, beneath the stories, beneath the strategies, you may feel a kind of quiet hum. It's there in the chest, in the belly, in the space around you. This hum doesn't care if you are successful or not. It doesn't care if you've made it spiritually. It's utterly unmoved by your resume. It just is. That is what you really are. Not the controller, but the space in which even the controller arises. Not the doer, but the awareness in which doing happens. From that place, you can still act. In fact, you may find that your actions become cleaner, kinder, less tangled with fear. You still write your lists, you still keep your appointments, you still vote, you still protest, you still care for your children. But you are not lost in the fiction that you are manipulating the cosmos. There's a beautiful secret freedom in that. You're allowed to be human, gloriously, messily human. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to laugh at your own seriousness. You are even allowed to forget, again and again, that you are the sky and not the storm. Because even your forgetting happens inside that vastness. What happens slowly is that you stop waging war against your own experience. Instead of saying, this moment is wrong and I must bend it to my will, you begin to whisper, this too. This fear too, this confusion too, this joy too, this boredom too, all of it is somehow part of the unfolding. Sometimes when I was in India, life would become very chaotic. No schedule, no privacy, no familiar comforts. There would be noise and dust and illness and long waits and incomprehensible delays. My American mind would shout, who is organizing this? Where is the efficiency? Where is the control? And then just as I was about to explode inwardly, I would catch the eye of some old woman squatting by the roadside, stirring a pot, and she would smile at me. In her eyes, there was no hurry. There was just this moment. Pot, fire, stirring, breath. And in that glance, I could feel the possibility of living like that, not bound to my plans, but rooted in presence. The more you taste that presence, the less you need the control story to feel safe. Instead of, I am safe because I have managed everything, it becomes, I am held in something larger than my understanding. Trust shifts from your cleverness to the mystery itself. Now, that doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean you sit back and watch the world burn saying it's all God's will. There is a deep urge in the heart to relieve suffering where it appears. That urge is also God's will. When you see someone hungry, something in you reaches. When you see cruelty, something in you recoils. You don't have to suffer it. Yes, those impulses, you can let them guide you into compassionate action. The difference is that you act without hatred. You act without building a self-image around being the savior. You act as the hand of something larger. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail, sometimes you never see the results at all. But the action itself becomes the offering. If you bring this attitude into your daily life, even the smallest tasks become sacred. Washing dishes, answering emails, changing diapers, sitting in traffic, each can be an opportunity to soften the grip of control and rest in awareness. Here I am, you can say inwardly. Here is water, here is soap, here is tiredness, here is boredom. Nothing has to be different for you to be present. Presence is not another achievement. It's the ground you're already standing on. Little by little, you start seeing God in very unlikely places. In the face of the clerk who is moving too slowly. In the neighbor whose politics offend you. In the aching knee that won't let you sleep at night. You may not like all these forms. God has some very strange costumes, but you begin to recognize the same light flickering behind them all. And perhaps on some ordinary day, you will catch yourself in the middle of an old control drama, defending, arguing, grasping, and instead of tightening further, you will smile. Just a small, inner smile. Oh, you'll think, there I go again, trying to organize the infinite. And in that smile, something relaxes. The situation may not change at all, but your relationship to it has shifted. You are a little less entangled, a little more spacious, a little more kind. This is not a sudden transformation. It's not a single thunderbolt from the sky. It's more like the slow opening of a flower. Petal by petal, moment by moment, the heart uncurls. Sometimes it closes again. There's a storm, a hurt, a fear, and that's all right. The sun of awareness is still there, waiting patiently for the next opening. Right now, as you listen, you might notice that you are being held by the chair, by the floor, by gravity, by the air in your lungs. You are supported by countless forces you do not control, the beating of your heart, the functioning of the organs, the turning of the planet, the warmth of the sun that grew your food. None of this is your doing, and yet it is your life. You are being carried. If you let yourself feel that, not as a concept, but as a sensation, something very deep may soften. The shoulders drop a little. The breath deepens, the mind's clamor quiets, even if only for a moment. In that quiet, you're not trying to improve anything. You're not trying to fix yourself or others. You're simply here as you are in the embrace of what is, and perhaps you might whisper inside from that place, I don't have to be in control to be okay. I don't have to understand to be held. I don't have to deserve love to be love. If you can taste that for even one breath, the whole game changes. Because then, when the old habits return, and they will, you know that they are not the whole truth. You can let the controller do its little dance, and you can still rest as the sky. You can be both the character on the stage and the vast, silent audience. The drama continues, but you are no longer lost in it. We are all, each of us, being slowly, gently, relentlessly loved out of our illusions. Every disappointment, every surprise, every loss, every unplanned turn is another knock on the door. Beloved, let go. Come home. You were never driving this thing, but you have always been carried. So when you find yourself clenching again, trying to script your life and everyone else's, see if you can pause, just for a heartbeat. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel the breath in the body. Look around at whatever is here, a room, a street, a sky, another face. Let it all be exactly as it is, just for this moment. And in that simple allowing, notice what shines through. A quiet tenderness, a stillness that doesn't need to control, a love that has been here all along, waiting for you to notice. You thought you were in control. The delightful, humbling, liberating truth is that you never were. And yet, in a way deeper than the mind can grasp, you have never for a single moment been outside the heart of what is in control.